What is up, everybody? In this video, we're going to talk about how to build your trading system. How do I do this? Where do I start? So if you're brand new or even experienced, this could help you as well. Now, often you'll see on the internet people say, hey, you need to find something and stick to it. There are traders who struggle with system hopping, and it seems like they can't stick to one thing. Well, I would say that system hopping is necessary to a degree, and so is sticking to something. However, what happens when that thing you're doing stops working? Because that happens. So the first thing we want to do is figure out our trading identity. And I have a video down here called Modus Operandi. There it is right there. Now, I've talked about this in recent videos. We're going to talk about it again. However, we're going to talk about it from the place of figuring out what your trading identity is. Is scalping even appropriate for you, or swing trading? Do you need to do more systematic style of trading, or is being fluid and flexible in your ability to manage more in line with your identity? Trading identity is extremely important to figure out. That way you can start to explore trading systems or techniques that fit with your natural way of doing things. For example, this is mine right here. See this blue? This is low follow through. I have a hard time writing trades out, like intraday swings, swing trading, stuff like that. It just drives me nuts. However, this low blue also signifies that I thrive on interruptions. So when the setups are shifting or the price action is shifting, I'm going to be shifting a lot with that. Now, what is this exactly? I want to sum it up. This is Colby Index A test. It does cost money. It's like $50 or some shit. And this is not a personality test. This is how do you do things if you're free to just be yourself and take on tasks your own way. So this is your identity for getting things done. So red is going to be gathering information. The higher the red, the more information you need to gather before making decisions, such as me. I'm in a 7. Then you got some guys in 4s, so they're really a lot lower. They don't need to gather as much information when it comes to making decisions. That's going to have an effect on something like what you're putting on your screen or the narratives you're building before taking a trade. The blue is going to be systematic. The higher the blue, the more systematic a trader is. The more they're going to do one task at a time and see it all the way through. Somebody low blue, they're more ADD. They're going to have terrible follow through. However, they thrive on interruptions. Now, these scores aren't necessarily bad, nor are they good. A higher score doesn't mean that's better necessarily, where a lower score doesn't mean that's terrible. You got to think of this like you're a video game character, and when you load a specific character and you get to like pick personality traits for a character, right? Are they good at this task? Well, if they're really good at this task, they're going to be lacking somewhere else. So when it comes to these scorings, you can see that nobody's like all the way at the very bottom with high scores, and nobody's all the way at the very top. Now, there are people who can be like a 5 all the way across the board. So they're pretty balanced across it. This is what we call a facilitator. Now, this is something we'll talk about later. Let me finish the colors. So we have green. Green is going to be like risk. The higher you are on green, the more likely you are to actually take risk. The lower you are in green, such as trader C and contractor B, these are all different people, by the way, that I know that have taken this test. They're low green. We can see there's a few low greens in there. We can see there's 2 2s and 1 3. They're not risk adverse people. They don't take risks. They want to stick to what works. Play it by the book. Higher green, like this trader A and contractor A, they're going to be more risk seeking. They're also going to be innovators. The yellow is going to be your ability to envision a solution. The higher up you are on yellow, like a lower score, like there's really not too many 3s, but 3s and above, the higher up you are in that realm, the more you can envision a solution. The lower they are, like a 7 yellow, they need to build out the solution. They create the solution. They need statistics. They can't really visualize the solution. They need to like build something. So a facilitator is going to be someone in the middle. They're kind of on both ends of the spectrum. Somebody in the middle of the green is going to be able to be risk adverse, but also put it on. Somebody in the middle of the blue, like this 5, they can handle some interruptions, but they're also systematic. Somebody in the middle, like this yellow 5, they can see the solution, but they also build it. So people in the middle are kind of on the cusp of these things. So we all operate completely different. So this is my trader, Chronic. He's my coaching student. Notice he's a red 7 like I am, 2 blue. I'm a 3 blue. He's a 5-6. He's a 5 in the green. I'm a 6 in the green. He's a 6 in the yellow, and I'm a 4 in the yellow. So out of all these traders, his Colby stats are very similar to mine. This is why we tend to have this really good resonance with each other. And I never really knew this until I had him take the test. When it comes to certain people, whether it's people you work with, family, friends, there are some people that you resonate with, and it seems like you guys are really aligned on a lot of stuff, and it's probably because you're going to be similar in a lot of these categories. Now, you may resonate with them on certain things, but on the other end of the spectrum, you don't understand them. You don't get them. And by the way, if you don't know who Chronic is, right here, this Trading Mentor live session, this is Chronic and I trading together. I talk about in this video who he is and get you up to speed about our coaching session over the last year. So check that out. So let's kind of break these things down because this is important to understand. You want to lean into this type of stuff. Now, if you're not willing to take the test or what have you, I believe you can take the test for free. You can get the, they ask you like 4 questions and it takes about 20 minutes. You could potentially record those questions and answers and then run them through AI to potentially figure out where you fall. Or as I speak through this, you might figure out where you land. And then you can try to go from there. Now, I swear by this shit, which just seems like my version of a chick that reads zodiac charts and shit like that. Oh, it's your birth month and fucking Jupiter's in retrograde and we got to shove crystals up our asses to be in line with fucking Pluto. Okay, so this is my version of it. So the contractor A and B are 2 people that work for me, and I lean into their statistics, their results, or the way they naturally do things when left free to do things their own way, right? If you work for somebody, they may not have you leaning into your strengths. Thus, it's like really challenging for you to do whatever the task is. So let's look at these 4 things, and I've already gone over them a bit, but I want to go over it more so you can understand the scoring and just try to figure out where you think you land. So the first thing is Fact Finder. This is gathering information or how we share information, right? Scores 1 through 3 are going to be simplified. You see the big picture, you simplify the solution, and you condense the data. Where 7 through 10 is research in depth, prioritize, and build on experience. I'm a 7, so I'm in the specify category. There are people who complain that my videos are way too long. And I used to think they can't focus. How could they do this job if they can't sit through an hour-long video where I go over all the detail? And the people that complain the most tell me to get straight to the point. I fucking waffle on about a bunch of bullshit that doesn't seem like it matters or it's related to the video. However, I'm always using analogies. I'm always specifying because I'm a high red. I am always attacking things from multiple angles. That's why my content is the way it is. A person 1 through 3, it's too much for them. Their eyes are going to glaze over and they can't handle it. Who's right? Who's wrong? Neither person, right? So the thing is, the people who are on the simplify category on the one extreme and the people on the specify category on the other extreme, when it comes to specific tasks that's related to information, a 1 through 3 person isn't going to really resonate or quite understand somebody 7 through 10 on the red. Somebody 1 through 3 who some people just tell me shit like, yeah, just do this. And I'm like, well, that's not good enough. I need to know more information. Or they're like, oh, this works. And I'm like, why does it fucking work? I need to know. I need to gather my information, my intel. Otherwise, it drives me fucking nuts. Same thing for people who are 1 through 3. My videos are too long. It drives them fucking nuts. This is going to be the same for all of this. Somebody who's high blue, 7 through 10 blue, is more systematic. They're not going to be able to deal with somebody 1 through 3. 1 through 3 is more ADD people. People who adapt, they're flexible, they vary their approach, they create shortcuts. What am I? Well, I'm a 3. Look at this trader. They're a 7. And that's going to be like that for each one of these, okay? The guys on the opposite ends of the spectrums are going to have a hard time relating with each other. The people 4 through 6, facilitators, they're going to be able to understand it all. They're going to be able to communicate more effectively with people on both ends of the spectrum because they're in the middle. They're the facilitator. So somebody in the middle, 4, 5, and 6, they do need things explained. They can't have it simplified, but they don't need it too specific. So highlight what's important, review the data, work with priorities. Whereas someone like me, research in depth, prioritize, build on experience. So here's what I've heard from the people that run the test. I've talked to them and watched a lot of their videos. People who are higher red are more likely to be specialists in something. And in my opinion, in order to do this job, I think you need to gather information. I think you need to know as much information as possible because this is something we're going to talk about later in this video, but information is edge. It really is. Good, solid information is edge. Statistics on trades is edge. Like, you need to know that shit. You need to know the statistics on your trades. I feel like in order to be really good at trading, you just need to understand the ins and outs. But then again, that's where I fall. So it's too hard for me to sympathize and resonate with somebody that's not gathering a shitload of information. Do you see how this is working right now? I'm like, you have to do these things. Is that necessarily true? I don't know, but like, it hurts my brain to think that there's a way of shortcutting this without gathering enough information. I just don't see it being possible, but I could be wrong. See, and we're cutting up a lot of my longer videos now and putting them on YouTube. That way I can cater to these people and these people as well. And some people in the comment section has told me they like that. They do enjoy the content being cut up because I just go on and on about shit. Now you know why. So how does this work in the form of trading? Well, let's look at everybody in here, which everybody in here is a trader or has traded at some point. I don't know what happened to trader A, B, and C. They've disappeared. I do believe trader B is still out there, as well as trader A, but I don't really hear from them anymore. So we can see that everybody in here is above a 3. So all of the traders are going to be falling in the explain or specify category. So when it comes to making a decision, when it comes to actually taking a trade, some of us need a lot more information than others. So you're hunting a trade, you're building a narrative, you're building a story. Some of us need a lot more information. When it comes to building our trading system, we need a lot more information. When it comes to looking up information on how to build a trading system, finding a trading system, some of us just need more information. Now I want to jump to the green one, which is quick start, because the blue is follow through. It makes sense to go to quick start. 1 through 3s are going to minimize chaos and risk, control the options, and protect what's working. This guy right here, who's a 3, he works for me, Contractor B. When I'm pitching radical marketing ideas or anything like that when it comes to Tradecraft and Fat Cats of Wall Street, which he helps me with both of those. And by the way, just so you guys know, Tradecraft, my journaling and tagging software, has a sale that is ending probably as you're watching this video, honestly. Unless you're one of the very first people to watch this video. If you're watching this later in the week, it's ended. It's our birthday sale. We've officially launched it over a year ago in February, ran the sale for a bit longer, and we're going to be talking more about statistics, and I'm going to go over Tradecraft later in this video, but I'm just throwing that out there. So Contractor B wants to do things at work because he's worked for other people in the industry, shit like email marketing, just play it safe type of stuff, nothing too extreme. Whereas Contractor A, the guy that actually programs Tradecraft, he's high in the green. So he's going to be trying things or experiment. If I give him deadlines, I'm like, hey, we need this done by then. He will work a lot harder. And he's really good at brainstorming unique ideas. Where I'm a 6, I'm in the modify category. So between these two contractors, one is in the stabilize, the other is in the innovate. I can facilitate what we need to do in between these guys. So I can adjust the change to stay in innovation, check things before trying them. So I want to talk about this from the place of like trading identity, right? We can see that we have a few few traders that are under the 3 category. These are going to be risk adverse traders. They're probably going to be traders who are going to undertrade. Something like scalping a lot throughout the session is not going to feel good for them. Whereas somebody who's high green, they're more likely to be an overtrader. They're going to be taking a lot of trades. Now, when it comes to course material or learning from another trader, the low greens 1 through 3, they're more likely going to follow the system step by step. However, in order to do this job, you have to take risks. This is a risky job. This is one of the riskiest jobs. So naturally, you need to be more of a risk-seeking person. So the people that are more likely to get into trading are going to be higher greens, mid to high greens. Now, here's the problem. If most people that are getting into this are mid to high greens, because you got to take risk, right? The low greens, it's going to be uncomfortable for them. And I know Contractor B, he just doesn't trade. He doesn't like it. It makes him extremely uncomfortable. He just doesn't do it. Now, when it comes to the mid to high greens, mid greens 4 through 6, such as myself, were modifiers. I have a video where I reviewed every trading course. It's right here. It's pretty old. Review of every trading course I bought. I mentioned in this video many years ago, before I ever took this Colby Index A test, how I would always modify every course material and never stick to what they taught. Well, I'm a 6, which is a modifier. Now it makes fucking sense. Guys who are green, they're more likely not to really look at trading material. They're more likely to just try to figure it out for themselves. So when it comes to handing you guys trading edge on a silver platter, which there's a difference between performance and edge. This is something we're going to talk about later in this video. However, when it comes to handing you guys some form of edge on a silver platter, and let's say it's like pretty decent edge, it's almost a type of edge you guys could model if you just follow the rules. Just do this, just do this, just keep sticking with the rules. And if it's that type of edge that could potentially work if you just kept sticking to the rules, and it was a type of edge that didn't rely heavily on performance, most of you would not follow that through. Most traders are modifiers or innovators. So I can tell you, when it comes to my trading material that I sell on my website, fatcatsofwallstreet.com, I have this primer course, and then all my narrations, all my trading sessions are in this. And you can go through each of the months, each of the weeks right here and look at all my trading. The primer course, which I have 2 modules that will be added to this by the time you watch this, most likely. Like, I'm constantly updating and adding modules to this. Now, there might be periods of times where I don't. The 2 modules that will be added to this is book balancing, so a lesson on how inventory is getting balanced in the order flow, as well as HFT tax, how high frequency trading sort of taxes other traders, how it pings and sniffs liquidity. Now, when it comes to presenting this material, most of you are going to be a mid to high green. So you're either going to modify the fuck out of it or just, look at it and maybe take something from it and innovate. The only trader that I know of that I talk to who models me almost perfectly is Chronic. So there are a few traders who I personally continue to talk to who have gone through my material, and I can tell you they absolutely just fucking change the fuck out of it, or they look at stuff I don't look at, or they try to fit it in with what they're doing, and therefore it's not what I taught. So that's the reality of like trading education and shit. Most people are just gonna hack it up, but if you're gonna be a trader, you're gonna be a risk seeker, right? So naturally it's in your DNA to fucking modify or innovate shit. Where somebody who's low green, they might follow it step for step, but they're scared. They're scared to actually execute. So when it comes to like handing you guys shit on a silver platter, and I'll say this, the way I trade in my material, which we'll get more into later in the video when we talk about performance versus edge, it's stuff that's not going to get you consistent. I don't think any material will get you consistent. That video I mentioned earlier about review of every trading course I took, I highly recommend watching that. And then also I have a video on trading courses suck right up here. Why I think trading courses suck. Oh, but you sell something, Fat Cat. Yes, I do, but that is an hour-and-a-half video, so there's a lot of deep philosophical explanation going on in there about it all. All right? This is why I have a course material, but I also post my narrated trading sessions. I would say that as I gain more experience and as the regime shifts, a course only captures the material in the moment when the course provider created it. And as the regime shifts over the years and what have you, things changed and the trader could be getting better. So it's very important that you understand what they're doing on the day to day, which I provide that material, but also I'm updating my modules as well in the course. So it's not something that's just like, here it is. There's going to be different versions as I evolve it and grow it bigger. So when it comes to like doing this, you guys are not going to do exactly what you should without modifying it. Now, if you're high blue, you might systematize, right? This guy here is an innovator, but he's also a mid blue. So he may systematize it, but he's going to innovate and create new shit. So if he's following some sort of trading material, he's going to innovate because he's a 7 green. He's a high risk seeker, but he may somewhat systematize it, but be flexible. Whereas somebody like this is going to systematize it and stick to what works. But can they actually put the risk on when it comes to doing the job? It's just all this stuff is kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't type of shit. Like I said, everything has a strength and a weakness, but what looks like a weakness isn't necessarily a weakness. Like these low green guys, they're more likely to do what they need to do, assuming they are mid to high blue. But if they're blue and their green stats are higher, well, when it comes to yellow and red, those are naturally going to be lower, like this guy over here. So they may not be gathering enough information, or they may not be building out the tooling they need to help with solutions. It is my belief that as traders, as the market gets more sophisticated, it's better that we kind of come together and work as teams. That's my belief. If you can come together with other people, you can lean on each other's strengths in certain areas. So high greens are probably going to be more over traders as well. They're more likely to potentially fall in the realm of gambling as well. So it is my belief somebody in mid green is more ideal. Somebody especially like chronic. Somebody that can put on the risk, but also not take unnecessary trades that shouldn't be put on. Where I'm 1 point higher than chronic, so I'm going to be a little more aggressive in this realm. Now, I personally know contractor A's trading, and he's incredibly aggressive to the point he was putting on 50 trades a day, and he's a high green. So let's talk about follow through. Green is sort of quick start, just jumping into shit, doing things. That's another thing. Low green is going to be less likely to quick start versus high green. They're going to jump into the project. Like me, I'm high green, low blue. So I'm going to have a hard time seeing shit through. However, low blue is not entirely bad. They're flexible, they vary the approach, they create shortcuts, they adapt. When it comes to building tradecraft or tagging software, the developer is low blue and so am I. So we're doing everything in our power to make it as simple and as quick as possible to create tags for the journal. When it comes to putting a YouTube video in, like, you know, you got to record your sessions. That's really good. You record the sessions, you can just upload the video, figure out the start time, and it'll timestamp all of your trades. So you don't have to dig through an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour footage. All your trades are readily available for you to review very quickly with our software because we're focused on shortcuts. So that's actually a good thing when it comes to software, making it quicker and easier to use, right? But we also, since we have this ADD thing about us, we put in stuff that other traders want. Like, personally, I don't calculate R when it comes to trading, but traders want that. So we've added it. You can custom code widgets, or you can export all your trading data and put it in an AI system and talk to it about your tags. This was all innovative thinking, thanks to the contractor A, who is an innovator. He comes up with these wild, amazing ideas. And I'll tell him, hey, that might be too extreme. Let's pull it back a little bit. But I understand where he's coming from. However, when it comes to building out the instructions for tradecraft, neither one of us, like, I personally don't... I slack on some of these tutorial videos and shit. So what I'll do is I'll record us talking about features, and then I'll hand off the recording to contractor B, who's more systematic, who will then build a step-by-step guide on some of the tooling in tradecraft. So do you see how neither one of these is like a weakness per se? They both have their strengths, but they also have their weaknesses, no matter where you're really falling. Now you could argue that being down the middle, being a 5 across the middle, seems like the best balance. Yeah, Potentially, but when it comes to certain things that really rely heavily in gathering information, because information is power, you're going to naturally want somebody that's higher red than somebody that's like mid-tier red. Or if you truly need to have some ironclad system built, you're going to want a higher tiered blue. This is important for you guys to get together and work together in trading. I really think the future of trading is going to be more of a team endeavor. So we saw with the blue, low blue is an adapter, thrive on interruptions. When it comes to actually taking trades, instead of having a trade ride straight to target or straight to a stop, we're more likely to hand manage shit. If we know that the trade might fail, we're going to cut it. If we know that the trade might flip direction, we could cut and reverse really quickly. Somebody on the other end of the spectrum, a systematizer, they bring things to closure, they provide systems, and they design plans. They're more likely to just like follow the trade through. It either hits the target or it doesn't. But the problem with that is, as the trade is going near target, the narrative might change. So they need a system in place for those circumstances. That way they can be like, oh, I need to cut this and take it off. A systematizer is going to be more oriented with checklists. So when it comes to trading, a checklist, which we have built in Tradecraft, you know, you can run through your checklist and it'll build out a narrative, and then you can sort of build out multiple checklists. You can reorganize your checklists however you want, and they're built node style, and it can be very complex. You can actually build a trading system with our checkmate. That's what this is called. Somebody high blue is going to thrive more in that systematic checklist environment. However, low blue, when the trading done, it's like, this is probably not going to target. You can just tell how the narrative is switching up. They're going to be more likely somebody that can just kill it. The markets are incredibly choppy. Shit doesn't completely follow through in like indices, right? So an adapter is going to be more inclined to adapt to different environments. Oh, fuck, it's a trend day. Oh, fuck, it's a range day. Oh, shit, it's no longer ranging in the middle of the day. The adapter is going to be able to switch shit up, change gears, and adjust and adapt to the environment as it's shifting throughout the session, where a systematizer may struggle with that if they do not have a systematic approach to handle that. They need something that lets them know, hey, shit has changed, therefore the system has to change. A maintainer is going to be somebody in the middle. They can sustain a system, but they can also identify inconsistencies. They can adjust the program. So somebody like this is going to be able to float in between, right? But they're never going to be hardcore systematic, and they're never going to be hardcore adaptive. And there's going to be scenarios where one is better than the other. Same thing with finding information. Somebody higher red might start to get analysis paralysis because not enough information is there. They might not put on the trade because they don't have enough information. If they're high red and high green, yes, they'll put the trade on, but they might need more information. However, somebody lower red, they may be quicker to act if they're higher green, lower red, on less information to put the trade on. Especially if they're mid to high blue, they're more likely to be systematic. They have the system. They don't need as much information in the current price action. The system seems okay. They're higher green, mid green. They'll put the trade on. Now let's look at the yellow implementers, how we handle space and tangibles. So this is what I mentioned earlier. Can you visualize the solution, or do you build stuff to fix a solution or create a solution through building shit, but you can't visualize it? Low yellow deals with the intangible, describes without having to demonstrate, simulates situations. I'm a 4 in this category, so I am a facilitator. However, when it comes to implementing solutions, building something out, like my trade tags or testing stuff to see what kind of outcomes I get, I'll be able to sort of lean into that. Somebody who can repair mechanical devices, handle tangibles, bridge the gap between physical and virtual solutions. But I can see a lot of this shit in my head. Now, when it comes to a lot of people on the team, which would be these three up here, there's a 6, a 4, a 6, and then I'm also a 4. When it comes to these two guys, I can like see shit. I'm like, I see things, I want to test stuff that they can't see. And it's like, dude, trust the vision. And then once the vision has been created, then they get it. Like when it comes to Chronic, he's in the middle like me, but he's on the other extreme of the middle like I am, right? It's 4, 5, and 6 is in the middle of this category. We're both on the other extreme of that. There are times where I'm adjusting our trading system and he doesn't like it. But once he sees how it works, then he gets it. So guys in the higher yellow, they demonstrate, physically create 3D solutions, insist on quality. These are going to be people who they're going to build stuff. They're going to be more of the actual builder of stuff for solutions when it comes to a solution-oriented outcome. Some guys can see it in their heads. Some guys need to build it in order to see it. Guys in higher yellow, they need to see statistics. They need to tag trades. They need to back test trades in order to see how well it works before they believe in it. Somebody higher up can see it in their heads, and they don't necessarily need to build shit out. Now, that can be a bad thing in trading. It is good to have statistics behind your trades, right? However, this can also be something good when it comes to trading, right? They can see the solution, and then you hand it off to a high yellow who then builds the solution. So we've gone over this stuff and how it shapes our identity, and we want to lean into these things. We want to lean into this shit. For me, being incredibly systematic is really difficult to do. And that's the thing. I already explained. This can be bad or good depending on the scenario when it comes to actually trading. Like, I can adapt to changing environments quicker than somebody who's high blue, right? But not following shit down to a science can get me into trouble. So we want to lean into shit. So when it comes to actually making a decision process in your trading, the higher score is usually going to be up front. So this trader is 33-33. So they're pretty tied, which is this specific trader right here, trader C. So they're gathering information while at the same time running through a system when it comes to a trade. So they need to be gathering information while running through a system at the exact same time, running through a checklist, gathering information by looking at what's going on in the market at the same time. They're going to have some sort of solution, maybe have their technical analysis or some sort of signal come on. Then they make the decision to put the trade on. But since they're so low green, the trade may never like set up exactly the way they need it to, and then they keep missing trades. Some of you guys that are watching this, you struggle to put trades on. You might be falling into a category like this. See, and this trader would be good, right, if they were complemented with somebody who was on the other end of the extreme. Somebody who had a more high green scenario, like this specific trader, super high green. So these two traders could complement each other when it came to building a trading system. And yes, guys, I advocate working with other fucking traders. That not enough of that is being done. And I really feel like that if traders worked more together, it would just be better. That's the thing, like S&B Capital, they take two traders and have them trade the same account, and they get really good results like this. And because of that, they're most likely taking two traders with two different traits. Therefore, they're complementing each other. So this trader up here is high green, blue, and then their red and yellow are tied. So trader A. So trader A is more likely just to fucking jump into a trade without actually gathering information. And when they put the trade on, they're going to see it through, right? Or they're going to run a system once they put the trade on. And then their ability to have some sort of solution kind of comes in the end. So this could be like leaning on something that actually fucking works, right? Somebody who's going to be higher yellow, they're more likely going to lean into that trigger when it comes to actually putting on the trade. And if they're somewhat high in the systematic approach, they're going to lean into the solution more so. Now, to me, it just seems like you should be gathering information before you put the fucking trade on, but that's because I'm high red. So this is mine at the very bottom of this. You can see I'm pretty high red. So when it comes to taking a trade, I'm building a narrative, reading a narrative, looking at the narrative, gathering information, then I'm very quick to put the trade on. then I'm going to lean into the system, the solution. Not really the system, I would say, because that's blue, but I'm going to lean into my tooling. So think of yellow as your tooling, your technical analysis, the way you read the charts. I'm going to lean into that after I put the trade on. What is the charts telling me? And then I might be really quick to cut it, which can be good, but sometimes it can be really bad because I'm cutting a winner way too soon, which that shit does happen. Or I could leave a trade on and just let it lose for fucking ever. That could be a problem as well. I have terrible follow through. So in an ideal world, it would be best to like pass this off to like somebody else, right? This is the different trading identities. This is how you approach shit. And this is the steps in how you approach shit. This trader and myself were gathering information first. Whereas in the decision tree for this specific trader, they're not gathering information until like 3 steps in, right? They're putting the fucking trade on. Then they're running through a system. Then they start to like kind of see what's going on. Whereas this trader versus me, I put the trade on. We both gather the information. I put the trade on. This trader runs through a checklist, runs through a system to make sure it's good, looks at the technicals at the same time I'm looking at the technicals, then they might put the trade on. Whereas once I have the trade on, I might cut it too early or just let it stay on forever. The systematic follow through is not there. So unless you're a perfect 5 across the board, maybe that's what makes the best traders. I don't know. We'll see what happens as I develop my prop firm and I have people take these tests, and we'll see which guys are the better traders, right? Maybe there is a specific MO, a specific modus operandi that makes a better trader. Or maybe you need to lean into each other to get the most optimal outcome. So we can see that there are these like do's and don'ts. So this guy right here, that's a higher green. There are things they need to lean into. Race the clock, take on challenges, promote alternatives, experiment. Do things at the last minute. So somebody in the higher green is more likely to be experimenting with back testing, shit like that. What they shouldn't be doing is conforming. They should not be hesitating. See, somebody low green is going to be more hesitant. They shouldn't be afraid to fail. Stick closely to the script and second guess themselves. Just do it. Just do it. Whereas we got this low green here, they need to avoid chaos. And unfortunately, trading is chaos. That's why I think the people who are getting into trading are going to be mid to high green. Find similarities. Remove unknowns. Trading is unknown. Fit new things into existing picture. Reduce the chance of making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes in trading. What they should not do is deal with oddities, race the clock, experiment. They shouldn't be experimenting. But that's somebody who's going to more likely follow the system, learn from somebody else who's done it, but they're going to hesitate to put trades on. They shouldn't volunteer for uncertain assignments, work with ambiguities. Can't even say that fucking word. So there are things you should not be doing depending on where you fall in these categories. Look at the high systematic guy. Design sequential systems. Coordinate and integrate activities. Chart and graph information. Categorize and catalog items. Get closure on a task before moving on. Do not deviate from plans. Do not put up with too many interruptions. Start a project without a checklist. That's what I was saying. Checklist guy. Take shortcuts. Don't do that. Leave without schedule. Here's low blue. This is me. Find shortcuts. Do that. Keep what you use easy to see and reach. Like, look, dude, if something's too far across the room, I'm not going to fucking do it. Like, I have to design my life where I have these weird things to help me. So it says try random approaches. I do a fuckload of experimentation. Actively pursue multiple projects. That's something I do. Tradecraft, Fat Cats of Wall Street, trying to start a fucking prop firm, right? This fucking YouTube channel. Deal with tasks as they arise. What I should not be doing is sticking by step-by-step procedures. Repeat patterns. I should not be repeating patterns. My trading tends to have a flow to it. Adhere to redundant systems. Be overly scheduled. Succumb to rigid routines. That's shit I should not be doing. These are your units of energy. Right? I don't have as much energy for fucking follow through in the end. You only have so many units of energy and everybody's pyramid looks the same. And it's going to be according to color. Like last night I was testing and drilling stuff with options. all the way till 10 at night. And then I was burning up energy as I was gathering information. So the thing is, when you're trying to model another trader, look at trading material, where the fuck do you fall in any of this? Like, I mean, Chronic has the most similar stuff. We're in the same realm of shit. We're both going to be in the specify category with red. We're going to both be shitty follow through, but we're going to be more adaptive. We're both mid-tier on the green, and we're both mid-tier in the yellow. And he still tries to modify what I present to him. But he's the one trader I know that does what I do and understands what I do the most out of any other trader I've dealt with. And that's probably because a lot of traders are falling in like radically different categories. So you have to understand that when it comes to building out your trading identity. And I know that was really long-winded. Now, before we jump into performance versus edge, I want to just say, you know, when somebody in the trading is telling you, you should do this, you need to do this, and you need to do it this way, I'm guilty of that. Is that really the best way for you? I feel like, however, when it comes to trading, there are certain things you need to lean into. There are times where I do need to be more systematic, and I just have to lean into that. However, it is important to lean into your strengths, or just lean into your modus operandi, I should say. Now, let's talk about performance versus edge. Performance is what most of you guys are doing, and we can think of this like a slider. Most of you guys are performing. Most of you do not have edge. Maybe I should put it like that. I don't know. That might be driving some of you nuts. When it comes to trading, you're either performing or you have straight up edge. Now, no matter where you're landing in this, if you have edge, you still need to perform. For example, counting cards in Vegas has statistical edge. You can win if you're counting cards in Vegas on the blackjack table, as this is one of the only Vegas games that has edge. However, that has about 51% edge, so it could be somewhere right about here. So it does have edge, counting cards, but there's an element of performance in order to exploit the edge. Your goal is to get as close to edge as possible. Some edge can be 90%. Some edge can be 70%. Or there could just be no edge at all, and you're just attempting to perform your way through trading. Your goal is to, well, get the fuck over here, I guess, right? Or at least 51% edge. Now, the closer you get to edge, the less psychologically taxing it is, because what you're doing works really well. The closer you get, the better it works, the higher the odds of it working, the less psychologically taxing it is as you go closer to edge. The further you go towards performance, which in my opinion, you can win with a lack of edge if you're performing. The more psychological taxing it becomes, the more you're relying on performative trading. So when it comes to performative trading, there are things you can do to sort of create your own edge. If you truly are cutting your losers aggressively, you're staying calm, you're staying clear, you're not taking any trades until there's full clarity. And clarity is something huge. Clarity is something I've talked about in this video up here. All the way at the top, it's Trade Tag Tutorial full course. I go over how clarity is one of the most important statistics. Being clear on the regime, making sure you know that the trades you're going to put on are going to work through doing a little bit of sim trading first or taking mental trades, understanding how far those trades can work, managing as perfectly as possible to the best of your abilities. This is going to be more performance-based trading. That one thing you do may not really have full-blown edge, where 51% of the time it's performing. We'll throw that 50 up there. However, when it comes to performance, it's extremely taxing mentally, and it's really hard to perform. However, if you have a little bit of edge, you still need to fucking perform. The better the edge, the higher percent of it working, the less taxing it is psychologically, the less you need to rely on just this raw performance of just really good management, really understanding what's going on. HFTs have extremely good edge. There are certain HFT programs that have not lost for years. They have not had a losing day for years. Why? Because they have latency edge. They are faster than everybody else, so they can react quicker than everybody else. Therefore, just being fast is edge. Now, as more HFTs come online, they start to compete with each other, so that pie starts to get less and less for these HFT firms as other ones come online and start to have the same speed advantage, the same information advantage as a competing HFT. So that pie starts to get divvied up more. And that means the HFT has to rely more on performance. Now, yeah, it's not psychologically taxing, but behind every program, behind every algorithm is a human. And if the fucking algorithm is losing you money, well, that's going to fuck with you psychologically speaking. See, traders think that with an algo, it's not going to fuck with them psychologically. But if the algo is losing you money, it's not fucking with you psychologically during the trading, unless you're watching it trade. But if you just let it run in the background and it's continuously losing you money, it's going to fuck with you psychologically. No matter where you fall in the realm, whether you're doing discretionary trading, where you're at the forefront, you're in the trenches, or you're trying to build an algorithm so you can take away the psychology, because I've talked to a lot of algorithmic traders who just don't want to rely on the psychological aspect. The thing with that automation is you're just postponing this. So I've added hand trading or discretionary trading versus algorithmic trading, because you guys are going to be taking one path or the other, most likely. Guys that are doing more hand trading, more discretionary trading, guys that are actually in the trenches, they're going to learn what performance looks like. They're going to understand from the perspective of performance. So they're going to understand what solid performance looks like. And performance is a good thing. Whereas somebody who's doing more algorithmic trading, they really got to find that edge. They got to find that edge. They got to be over 51%. And the chances of a retail trader with an algorithmic trading system to find edge, in order to get it to really work well, they're going to need to be higher up. If it's the lower it is, the more they're relying on performance. And the discretionary hand trader, they're going to understand performing better. They're going to be developing that because there's a fluidity when it comes to trading. Alrighty, guys, so I changed things up a bit. So the higher you go up, the more information you have. When you're brand new, you lack information and you lack edge. All you can do is attempt to perform to make money, which is going to be more psychologically taxing. Now, your goal is to attempt to get closer and closer to edge over here so you can make more money. However, the edge, while the closer you are to it, the more money you will make over in this area, right? So let's say you got just 51% edge, right? That's pretty good. However, if you got 51% edge, but you're able to perform really well, you have the ability to make more money. An HFT has a tremendous amount of edge. However, as more HFTs come online, they're competing with each other. So they no longer have that latency arbitrage edge anymore. So they're not making as much as they once did. However, the faster algorithm that is competing with this algorithm can make more money if it can outperform this HFT. And the way it's getting more performance is because it has superior information. Information is edge. Information is edge. This is why seeing traders in a higher red is a good thing. Why? Because they are gathering more information than somebody who is simplifying. The high reds are gathering more information than a trader who is not high red. So we got a guy who's not gathering much information. He's relying a lot more on performance. However, a trader who has more superior information that's still relying on performance has the ability to make more money as they gather more information. Look, if you show up and you're doing the same thing every single fucking day and you're not trying to learn about how the markets function, like, do you know how the S&P index works? Do you know that it is a divisor based off of stocks? Did you know that certain ETFs like the Vanguard, SPY, they have very similar, almost exactly the same price action as the ES, yet they have different order flow events. So then you got to ask yourself which one of these products order flow is more superior. Well, really, it's all of it. And as I learn more and more about the product I trade, the better I can perform, the closer I'm getting to performative edge versus somebody who is not gathering information. Now, somebody not gathering information, oh yeah, they could start to get closer to edge, right? They could get closer to that edge. However, the guy that has more information and is working their way up, they're going to be able to perform better. You can perform better, which good performance is edge. So you can have raw edge. That could be like a systematic approach, something rigid. The trade goes on, the trade goes off at exactly the same place, the same time, and it's just a rinse and repeat. However, as information flows into the market, that information can be changing. And somebody that can react to that changing information better stands to make more money than somebody with just raw edge. So really you need both. Just pure performance is really hard to pull off. However, performance in itself is edge. The ability to perform and not get mentally or psychologically taxed makes you perform at a higher level. Therefore, you stand the chance to potentially make more money. Whereas raw edge, that is extraordinarily rigid, while it can make money overall, and that might be appealing to some of you, and that's okay, right? It's not going to be as good as performative edge that is coming off of superior information. Think about it this way. Someone like Nancy Pelosi or these Congress people that make trades because they are passing a bill and they bet before the bill passes because they know how it could mess with a specific sector or stock or commodity. These Congress people can do really good because they have superior information. Same with any type of insider trading. That is superior information. High frequency trading has superior information because it can react to shit a lot faster. Having some form of algorithmic device that can look at multiple signals and put it together and react to it quicker than you as a hand trader has superior information. See, with my trading, there are several things I'm looking at. I'm looking at divergences across stock information, ETF information, and I would like to look at option information as well. Piecing that together is a little more difficult. Then I need to make sure I have book balancing in my favor across multiple deltas. And this is stuff I talk about in my Fat Cats of Wall Street primer course. Again, the book balancing is a new module that will be in here. So having that book balancing effect across stocks, ES, and the ETFs, those are signals I want to trade. I want to make sure I have divergences in my favor across all of that shit. The reloading is in my favor. I want to make sure that I have, I'm getting in on microstructure, which is a future module. I already have it somewhat filmed. That will be coming within the next week or so. So getting in on the right place in the microstructure, right? Nailing the microstructure in the right area. I want to make sure that I can get signals across all of this stuff. The problem is I'm too slow. See, that's a lot of information, but I need superior information by sticking it together and the ability to perform off of that, right? The problem is within the last week, there's all this really crazy volatility where the shit goes so fast I cannot fucking react. So I cannot perform as well over the last week. So my P&L has struggled substantially. This is my TradeCraft dashboard, and this is the last week of trading. Now, there's other things that had contributed to this poor performance other than the regime and not being quick enough to react. It was also psychology that was dampening it. But this is atrocious performance on my behalf because there's this speed. There is this speed, and this is where we start to go more into the realm of algorithmic trading. Speed is edge. Speed is edge. Being faster is edge. Being able to process superior information quicker is edge. Being fast is edge. We live in a very high-paced environment. And in this high-paced environment, we have more and more high-speed algorithms competing with each other. A lot of the market, it's really choppy. The market has gotten choppier and choppier over the years to the point it's so choppy that it is virtually impossible to get into a trade and have it work right away without your entry getting checked relentlessly. There used to be a time where I could get into trades and then they would just work and run. That's not the case anymore. Things are getting faster and faster. You'll have these moves where it just pops up and rips back in. So I'll get into a scalp and it goes 12 ticks, but it's already back on top of me before I can fucking react. Speed is edge. And the ability to process all this superior information, because the more information I have, the harder it is to make a decision in a timely manner. So this is where we want to start to see some form of hybrid trading coming in. We want to have some form of tooling built to where we take our more information, and the more information you have, the better, okay? Think about it this way. Hedge funds that are taking satellite photos to see how many cars are in the parking lot of Walmart before earnings. That is superior information. Is that the only thing they're going to look at? No, they're going to look at a lot more shit. The more information you have, the more edge you have. Let's look at the F-35 for a moment. Currently, at the time of filming this, there is a lot of conflict going on, and this jet is being implemented. You know, you have like Iran, the war between Iran, and how U.S. is going in there and doing strikes. They are using this jet. This jet is so packed with technology and is processing tremendous amounts of information that it has battlefield edge. The pilot is wearing a helmet that has these cueing systems, and it's talking to other airplanes, and they could see through the floor of the cockpit through this like almost augmented reality. So when they're flying and they look down, they can see the clouds below them. You have off-board capability. What does that mean? Old school jets, when it came to locking on missiles, you had to keep another jet in front of you to hit them. Well, now with this technology, the pilot can look and lock on through the helmet, and then the missile will come off the rail and turn. The jet is also stealth. This keeps it under the radar better. It has a special coating on it. The amount of professionals it took to create this is tremendous. Therefore, it has performative edge. Performative edge. Superior information and speed. This jet has the ability to react and do things quicker than other competing jets or surface-to-air missiles that are on the ground. It has the ability to react, hide from them, and perform a lot better, longer-range lock-on capabilities, all sorts of stuff. That gives it performative edge because it has superior information and it's able to do it at quicker speeds. This is what creates the ability to be really consistent in this. So, you know, people are like, you keep your charts simple, keep your charts simple. Yes, in a way that can be true. However, the problem is, as a discretionary hand trader, you can only react to one thing at a time. And if you have multiple time frames, that's multiple charts in multiple different locations. So your ability to process all that information is incredibly slow. However, if you can create some sort of algorithmic tooling that can condense the information for you to the point where you can process it faster, the better you are able to perform. And it is my belief that as the regime evolves over the years, it's just going to get faster and faster and choppier and choppier. You're going to see more and more of these micro flash crashes where the fucking thing rips 20 points, but it's already back. Right back where your entry is. But if you slow that down on a millisecond chart, and I've been watching a lot of millisecond charts, it is full-on battles. There are these battles that are going on that look like a fucking full hour, and then I'm like, shit, it's only been 40 seconds. Like, if you watch millisecond charts, a lot of what's going on is fractal. It kind of looks the same as higher time frames. It's a bit different, but there are certain principles that look similar. However, as you watch those battles on those millisecond charts in slow motion, right? I can't fucking process that shit at normal speed. 40 seconds of trading feels like an hour for us as human traders because there's something that is operating at that level that is extremely fucking fast, right? Extremely quick. Speed is edge. Superior information is also edge. So no matter your trading identity, no matter if you're trader A, B, or C, Chronic, or any of the contractors, or even myself, this is the path that we all need to be taking. We need superior information and we need to be faster. Because I can tell you that the pacing of the market is picking up to the point where it's very hard for me to react. I can perform if the overall environment is a bit slower, but as the environment gets faster, I also need to be getting faster. Because if the environment is extremely fast and I'm slow, that's a problem. And also, higher paced environments do offer more edge. So volatility also offers more edge. Volatility offers edge. The more the market is moving, the more you have the ability to actually compete and perform. Because if the market is not moving and there's no volatility, you are competing with algorithms that are simply faster than you and have more edge than you. Volatility helps you compete because you're actually getting movement. It is virtually impossible to compete for a tick. However, if you're getting multiple point movements, it's a lot easier for you to take a chunk of that than a tick. However, as time goes on, these algorithms are getting faster and faster to the point there's more and more of them competing with each other, which then creates this incredibly high volatility chop. And it becomes to a point where it becomes really hard for you to perform because you are too slow in a high speed environment. And the more information you have up here, the harder it is to process this information when the volatility is high. When the volatility in the speed of the actual market is a bit lower, you're able to process a lot more information easier. Therefore, you can somewhat compete. However, these high speed, high volatility environments offer a lot more edge because you have more movement. But the problem is that they're so short-lived, and I'm talking from a scalping perspective, that it becomes harder and harder to actually perform because I cannot process all my information quick enough to deal with the type of volatility we are in. Therefore, my ability to extract edge starts to look like this. Whereas in prior regimes, prior environments, my equity curve is smoother. So your ability to process information, right? It's one thing to have superior information, but your ability to process it changes over speed and volatility of the environment. Therefore, your edge starts to go backwards. You're never going to just have full-blown edge unless you have a trading system that is really a rinse and repeat system where you put it on and it's always working no matter what. In that type of scenario, you don't need performative edge. It just continues to work. But the problem is with this speed and the volatility, this just does not seem like it would work in a lot of ways. It can, and I'm sure that it exists, and I'm sure people have and are doing that, like Nancy Pelosi or some shit. You know, they don't need to be fast. They just put the fucking trade on because they have superior information. So no matter what you're doing, depending on the actual day, the actual environment, this is going to be floating around. And I can assure you that the information you're consuming, whether it's my information through fatcatsofwallstreet.com, somebody else on YouTube, you're reading a book, whatever the fuck it is, I don't know, you're looking at some trader who has an amazing track record, who has all these beautiful audited statements. Doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't fucking matter for you if you can't fucking perform. And it really doesn't matter if you're not able to fucking digest superior amounts of information quickly. Therefore, you need some sort of tooling to be able to do this. All right, so let's see how our trading identity, our modus operandi, fits in with this. We're going to take the first category, which is simplify versus specify. This comes to gathering information. That would be fitting like this. Simplify is this way, specify is this way. So I'm going to lean it like this. Specific people are going to gather superior information. Simplify people are going to lack information. The higher your score, the more superior information you're probably gathering. The lower the score, well, the more you lack information. So you could be in the middle and that could seem good. However, more specific information is just better. Next, we have the ability to adapt or systematize. More adaptive people have the ability to perform, while more systematic people are going to more likely be able to repetitively create edge. So remember, your slider goes from here to here. Adaptive people are more likely to be able to perform. Systematic people are more likely to I wouldn't say find edge. They could. More systematic people are going to have more of the ability to build systems, which may or may not necessarily equate to edge. If they're systematic, hopefully they are gathering a lot of superior information. However, systematic guys, they're going to potentially be running back tests, assuming they gather information. I feel like if you don't gather any form of information and you're systematic, you may need to use something somebody's already created because you're probably just going to be more dead in the water because you're systematizing stuff, but what specifically if you lack the ability to gather information? Now, I would say innovation is rather important. You need to innovate ways to get more speed, or innovate ways to create new tooling, or innovate ways to get more information. I would say innovation is really important for each corner: performance edge and performative edge. However, if we flip this the other way, a systematic guy who's more stabilized is probably going to go this path towards edge, but they're not necessarily going to go for performative edge because they lack the ability to be more aggressive and take on risks. After all, this is a business where you need to take on risk. And innovation is how you're going to gather more superior information and potentially get more performative edge. Likewise, that performative edge is going to come in the form of adaptation to the different regimes. However, once you have something that can adjust to the different regimes and has the ability to be systematized, then it would be good to flip these over and stabilize a system that can perform. But in order to get to a stabilized system, you need innovation and adaptation. As you can see, there is no right or wrong here. Then we have the ability to visualize versus the ability to build tooling. Well, likewise, you can build tooling going this way versus, performance. Performance, you kind of need the ability to see things in your head in order to perform well versus somebody who builds tooling. But at the same time, you need tooling in order to help build some form of algorithm that can potentially help you with speed because you need to digest superior information. And the problem with all that information is, you need specifics to gather that information, but at some point, in order to get an algorithm to actually perform off of it, you're going to need to simplify that information, condense that information. So here's the simplify. In order to really truly get an algorithm to perform, because an algorithm doesn't have that fluidity a human has. Or you want to simplify all of your information. So once you get your superior information, you kind of want to flip this over to the simplify. You want to simplify that superior information so you can create a tool. Somebody needs to envision the tool to create the tool. So somebody needs to create the tool. So somebody needs to envision the tool. Then somebody needs to create the tool and take this superior information from specific people, simplify it so that way it can be condensed in a way where you can be quicker. So you got to ask yourself, is being in the middle the best on all of this? Well, if you're in the middle, then you're going to probably land up somewhere in the middle, right? I have the information, I can kind of perform, but that's still 50%. Yeah, we can make some money, but what we want to do as traders is get the fuck over here and ideally up. We want to go this way. We want to go to the right of this. And the more extreme somebody is on one end of the spectrum, the better it is in certain scenarios and circumstances. So is landing in the middle really the best? And this is why I say working with other traders can be good. Team up and trade one combine, or work together as a team and create some sort of profit splitting. Tap into the extremes people have, because that's what it is seemed to be needed to get up into performance edge, right? The people that built this F-35 right here, chances are they were all over the different spectrums. And when you tap into those different spectrums, then you can achieve superior edge in the sky, which also translates to trading. So to answer your question, how do we actually build a trading system? Where do you land on these spectrums? And where can you go from there? And who can you talk to in order to tap in to where you're somewhat weak? So you're never truly weak in this. However, much like a video game character, you're never going to be able to max your stats out. Because if you had maxed out stats, then getting up here would be a lot easier. But that's not the case. It is important, in my opinion, to leverage other people in this business, which then makes it a team sport. If you can't code shit, you hire a coder who can build stuff. However, if you're on two opposite extremes of something, he needs simplify, but you're specific, there could be a problem. So having a facilitator explain and not over specify to somebody that needs simplify might be a way to communicate this shit. Or a coder who has no ability to actually perform can tap into somebody who has superior information. However, a coder who can build an algo through tooling potentially does not understand what they're building unless there's someone there that can envision it, that can see it. Somebody can see the tool, then somebody can actually build the tool. There needs to be innovation and adaptation to get the tool to perform or to get yourself to perform. Let's assume that maybe you're just going to be a discretionary trader. Well, at some point, you're going to want to flip that over to the point it's systematized and stabilized. But what if the regime starts to shift and whatever you're doing doesn't work? Then adaptation and innovation is really good. However, I believe you need, again, superior information, and you need to be able to process that superior information quickly. So condensing it down. This is why I prefer executing on a depth of market over a chart. I think it's quicker to see what's going on, understand where my Q position is. It's information that is condensed in order for me to see, but the problem is then I don't see the price action. So now I'm looking at the chart, I don't see the price action. So something's changing. So one thing I can do is be innovative, or I'm a modifier on the cusp of innovation. Maybe I can envision, because I'm a restorer, I'm closer to envision, I can see what needs to be done, and maybe having some sort of tone come through the headphones to keep me in a trade while I'm focused on the DOM might work. But then I need somebody to build the tool, and I'm very specific. Hopefully they are specific as well, or an explainer, so that way I can communicate it. Because if they're a simplify and I'm specific and I'm telling them what I need, they might not understand it. And if they're super high yellow, they may not be able to see it, so it doesn't make sense to them. So much like your stats can never be maxed out, your ability to really be up here is probably not going to happen without working with other people. The most successful HFT firms, quant firms, is a team of people, and those people all have different strengths and weaknesses. And again, none of these are like a strength or weakness. However, it can be a strength or weakness depending on the task. We need to gather superior information, but we also need to simplify it in a way that some algorithm can understand it. Or we need to take this superior information and somehow simplify it so we can be faster through some sort of custom indicators. But we can't be building custom indicators without knowing what we're trying to do. Do we have superior information that we know that can give us some form of performative edge? So as much as some of you would like a specific how do you develop a trading system, where the fuck do you land on this? And you need to lean into it. And I think it's important you communicate to other traders. Join communities. I have a free Discord. You can come in and talk to us. This is how I've met people that have helped me attempt to extract more out of the edge, or extract more out of my performance, or turn my performance into more raw edge. And if you're learning from somebody like me, and I'm a facilitator in this regard, right? I'm dead center on these two regards. So for me, it would be easier to communicate, and for people on the opposite ends of this spectrum, the yellow and the green, to understand who I am and what to do in this regard of my trading. However, guys that are highly blue, like this 7 over here, they're going to have a hard time with what I share because like it's really flowy. It's very adaptive. They're more systematic, right? There's nothing in between. And somebody that's super low red and I'm a higher red, then fuck, you're probably not even watching this video at this point in time, right? So the information I'm providing here is just going to go right over your fucking head because you need to simplify. So depending on who you're learning from, they may resonate with you in certain areas, but they may be one extreme and you're the other extreme, and that could be a problem. So if you're learning from me and you're learning from fatcatswallstreet.com or whatever, you got to attempt to take what I'm sharing and create notes and build a system that you can checklist off of it, or take the overflowing amount of information and condense it to simplify it if that's what you need. And that's what I've learned is I have to adjust my approach with people who are in the extremes. I have to adjust my approach and try to do my best to communicate to somebody who's on an extreme in the system category, or simplify for somebody who needs more simplified information. It's hard to do, but if you understand other people's modus operandi, you can try to meet in the middle. So let's talk about where you could potentially go with some of this. Somehow gathering superior information. Maybe somebody has already done that. Maybe something like options gex levels, and they create a charting platform or a custom set of tools that is diagnosing and looking at this superior information for you, and you're more in the realm of the simplify, right? Taking prepackaged stuff that you think has superior information can be really important. But again, people who are high red, who are running high superior information, they're typically specialists in that one thing. A really good geologist is really good at geology, probably sucks at race car driving. A really good cosmetic surgeon is probably really good at putting titties in somebody, but they're not good at trauma. I do believe that if you're doing this on your own, you're some form of retail trader, you're just going to have to be naturally somewhere in the higher realm of red. That's what I think. Otherwise, this could be a problem. Now, maybe you're low red, but you're very systematic. Well, you could do a lot of back testing and shit and try to find edge that way. So if you're high red, you want to be gathering as much information about whatever you're doing. Low red, you're going to have to start to lean into other aspects. If you're low red, that means you're strong somewhere else. Low red means you need to be seeking and searching people who already have gathered the information. But the problem is, how can you be sure of that information? You know what I'm saying? And are they able to explain it to you in a way that it's not overly explained, not overly specified like I do? If you're low yellow, you can visualize shit, you can see things. What kind of tooling, what kind of solutions do you think need to be built? Because you're going to eventually want things built so you can process all the information. So think of creative solutions and then find somebody that can build it for you. Builders. If you're a builder, then seek out somebody that has something you can actually build, something you don't need to visualize. However, depending on where you're on the green, are you a stabilizer or an innovator? If you're an innovator, then you can innovate stuff and build it. If you're an innovator and you can visualize it, that's good as well. People who stabilize, you're going to want to most likely find some sort of trading system that might be like potentially getting credit spreads on options or doing something that is a safe rinse and repeat, or just invest, honestly. Just like I think you need a mid to high tier red to be able to do this job, I think you need to be mid to high tier green to put a trade on, right? And then we have the adaptive and the systematize. I think both of these are really good. Whatever it is, you need to lean into what naturally feels right for you. So this is called the Colby Index A, in case you want to know about it. They have a bunch of great free resources and videos. It's a $50 test. If you take the test, you can actually look at these questions. Like if I were solving a difficult problem, I would rely on my research most. This is going to be red. Ability to structure is going to be high blue. Experimentation is going to be high green. This is going to be high yellow, right? Where this is the opposite, okay? Then it asks you another question. You might be able to plug this into AI or something if that's the method you want to go. If I believe something important could be made to help humanity, I would build it. This is high yellow. Investigate it, probably high red. Sell or promote might be green. Design it could be high blue, right? So when it comes to building a trading system, you need to lean into what you do well and seek out other people or informations that can assist you on your journey. That's the thing about the trading community as a whole. You got to think of this like an economy. We're selling and sharing services and information. Some people have tools, some people can build tools, some people can visualize tools, some people have information, some people simplify the information. You need to search and figure out what resonates. You need to try to get the best performance, psychology, depending if you're landing in the more hand trading style, right? And I have videos on psychology to boost performance. So you ideally want to be going up here. How can I boost performance? How can I get statistical edge through a system? How can I get superior information? How can I be faster, right? I know I need to compete in higher volatility environments. And the only thing I can tell you is what works for me, right? There's a trillion ways to fucking skin a cat. There's so many ways to get performative edge. What I could tell you may not fit for you, may not be right for you. For example, I have a lesson in my course on history of order flow. I go over that shit. History of order flow, how the S&P 500 moves, what's on my trading screen. There's going to be more information added to this that I've already filmed that's going to go in between this. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope that something resonated with you and you start to have some form of direction you can lean into. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next episode.